Saturday mornings in 1969 brought something completely different to television screens. A boy, a talking flute, a friendly dragon mare, and the most memorable witch you'd ever seen. H.R. Pufnstuf lasted only one season, but those 17 episodes left a mark on everyone who watched. The bright colors, the wild costumes, the strange inhabitants of Living Island. But behind that psychedelic children's show were stories most viewers never knew. Here are 12 wild facts you didn't know about H.R. Pufnstuf. Fact 12. The show started at a World's Fair. Before H.R. Pufnstuf ever appeared on television, the character existed in a completely different form at the 1968 World's Fair in San Antonio, Texas. Sid and Marty Krofft had been hired to create a puppet show for the Coca-Cola Pavilion at Hemisphere 68. They called it Kaleidoscope, and it featured a dragon named Luther as the star attraction. Luther became wildly popular. He ended up as the unofficial mascot for the entire World's Fair. When NBC approached the Krofft brothers about creating a Saturday morning children's series, they already had their main character ready. They redesigned Luther, changed his colors, and renamed him H.R. Pufnstuf. The friendly dragon mare who would become famous on television had his origins in a Coca-Cola promotional show at a Texas fair. The Krofts initially wanted to call the show Lutherland, keeping closer to the original character's name. But a friend suggested Pufnstuf instead, inspired by the hit song from a few years earlier. That suggestion changed everything, giving the show its memorable title, and the dragon his equally memorable name. Fact 11. HR stands for Royal Highness backwards. Everyone who watched the show wondered what HR stood for. The Krofft brothers have always maintained that it means Royal Highness, just reversed. Instead of His Royal Highness, it's HR, standing for the royal title, but flipped around. Pufnstuf was the mayor of Living Island, a position of authority and respect, so the royal connection made sense. Of course, given the era and the show's psychedelic visual style, people read other meanings into those initials. The Krofts have spent decades denying that their show had anything to do with drugs, despite constant speculation. They've repeatedly stated that no drugs were involved in creating the show. As Marty Krofft told USA Today in 2002, they were just bizarre, that's all. The initials remain one of the show's enduring mysteries, something fans still discuss more than 50 years later. Whatever they meant, they helped make the character's name unforgettable. Fact 10. Jack Wilde was cast at the Oliver premiere. The boy who played Jimmy, the show's young protagonist, came to the role through pure chance. Jack Wilde was a British child actor who'd just earned an Academy Award nomination for playing the Artful Dodger in the 1968 film Oliver. At 16, he was one of the youngest actors ever nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Sid Kroft's friend, Lionel Bart, was the composer behind Oliver. He invited Sid to see a rough cut of the film before its release. Sid watched this young British actor steal every scene he was in. Wilde had energy, charm, and a voice that carried through musical numbers with confidence. Sid immediately knew he'd found his lead. At the Oliver premiere later that year, Sid and Marty Krofft approached Jack Wilde and his family. They explained they were developing a children's fantasy show and wanted Jack to star. Wilde had just become a teenage sensation in Britain. Moving to Los Angeles to film an American television show was a huge decision, but the Krofts offered him $1 million for the role. That convinced him. During production, Marty Krofft became Jack's legal guardian since the teenage boy was living in America without his parents for extended periods. Marty later described bringing Wilde into his home as a mistake, admitting that he already had his hands full with 2 young daughters. The arrangement was challenging for everyone involved. Fact 9. Only 2 actresses auditioned for Witchiepoo. Finding the perfect witch for the show turned out to be surprisingly easy. Only 2 actresses came in to audition for the role of Witchiepoo. The first was Penny Marshall, then an unknown actress trying to break into television. She would later become famous for Laverne and Shirley and directing films like Big and A League of Their Own. But in 1968, she was just another hopeful at an audition. The Crofts felt Penny wasn't right for the part. Then Billy Hayes walked in. Hayes was a stage veteran who'd played Mammy Yokum in both the Broadway production and 1959 film version of Lil Abner. She understood physical comedy, knew how to project to the back row, and could handle demanding costume work. Billy let out a maniacal cackle that filled the room. Then she hopped up on a desk. That was it. The Crofts gave her the role on the spot. Billy Hayes became Witchiepoo, and her performance defined the character completely. Her cackling laugh, her exaggerated movements, her comic timing made Witchiepoo the most memorable character on the show. Many viewers rooted for her even though she was supposed to be the villain. Fact 8. The show contained a laugh track against the Crofts' wishes. Like most children's television shows of the era, H.R. Pufnstuf included a laugh track. But the Croft brothers didn't want one. They fought against it during production, preferring to let the comedy speak for itself. C. Rose, the show's executive producer and head writer, insisted on the laugh track. Rose had extensive experience with sitcoms, having worked on McHale's Navy, F Troop, My Three Sons, and The Ghost, and Mrs. Muir. He understood television comedy, and he knew that audiences in 1969 expected to be told when to laugh. As Sid Croft later explained, they were initially against the laugh track, but Cy Rose felt that when the show was put together, children wouldn't know when to laugh. Marty Krofft added that it was sad, but you had to tell audiences when something was funny. If you didn't have a laugh track in comedies, you were in big trouble. The audience at home had been programmed to view shows that way. The Crofts eventually accepted Rose's judgment. The laugh track stayed, becoming part of the show's sound design. Looking back, it's hard to imagine H.R. Pufnstuf without those canned laughs punctuating every joke. Fact 7. Everything on Living Island was alive. One of the show's most distinctive features was that literally everything on Living Island could talk and move. Houses spoke, clocks had personalities, trees had faces, boats carried on conversations, candles cracked jokes. Any object could become a character. This creative choice made Living Island feel genuinely magical, but also meant the production required an enormous number of puppeteers, voice actors, and costume designers. Every set piece needed to be engineered to allow for movement or manipulation. The workload was staggering. Many of these talking objects and creatures were voiced to sound like famous Hollywood actors. Viewers could hear parodies of Mae West, Edward G. Robinson, John Wayne, and other iconic performers coming from trees and furniture. The voice cast had to be skilled mimics who could capture these famous speech patterns while also giving each character its own personality. This approach to world building set H.R. Pufnstuf apart from other children's shows. It wasn't just about costumed characters interacting with a human boy. It was about creating an entirely living environment where anything might suddenly start talking. Fact 6. The show employed many little people. The production of H.R. Pufnstuf required dozens of performers inside the various costumes and puppets. Many of these performers were little people whose physical stature made them ideal for operating certain characters or fitting into smaller costumes. Marty Krofft discovered one of the show's regular performers selling newspapers on Hollywood Boulevard. That chance encounter led to a job on one of television's most unusual productions. Several other Little People actors found steady work on the show throughout its production run. The most memorable Little People actors on the show were Joy Campbell and Angelo Rossito, who played Kling and Clang, the two short police officers who worked for H.R. Pufnstuf as his rescue racer crew. Kling wore red, Clang wore green, and neither character spoke much. The Crofts later revealed that Kling and Clang were actually supposed to be bells, which explained their names and their general silence. These performers brought personality to characters that could have been simple background figures. Their physical comedy and timing added layers to a show that was already bursting with visual creativity. Fact 5. Paul Simon sued over the theme song. The H.R. Pufnstuf theme song was catchy, memorable, and according to Paul Simon, too similar to one of his biggest hits. Simon successfully sued Sid and Marty Krofft for plagiarism, claiming the theme song sounded too much like his 1966 hit, the 59th Street Bridge song, Feelin' Groovy. The theme song was written by Les Zarvas, but after Simon's successful lawsuit, Paul Simon received a co-writing credit. The song had the same bouncy, upbeat rhythm and melodic structure as Feelin' Groovy, and Simon's legal team convinced a judge that the similarity was too close to be coincidental. This wasn't the only legal trouble the Krofts would face over their creation, but having Paul Simon credited as a co-writer of the theme song added an unexpected footnote to the show's history. Every time the theme played during the opening credits, Simon earned royalties thanks to his successful copyright infringement claim. The lawsuit didn't affect the show's popularity or its use of the theme song, but it served as an early lesson for the Krofts about protecting intellectual property and the legal complications that come with creating hit entertainment. Fact 4. McDonald stole the show's concept and lost in court. The most famous legal battle involving H.R. Pufnstuf came in the early 1970s when McDonald's launched its McDonaldland advertising campaign. In early 1970, an executive from the advertising agency Needham, Harper & Steers contacted Marty Krofft. The agency was trying to win the McDonald's account and wanted to base their pitch on H.R. Pufnstuf characters. They asked if the Krofts would be interested in working together on the project. The Krofts and Needham had several phone conversations. Needham sent a letter dated August 31, 1970, stating they were moving forward with a McDonaldland advertising campaign based on the H.R. Pufnstuf series and acknowledging they would need to pay the Krofts for design work. Shortly after, when Marty Krofft called Needham, he was told the campaign had been canceled. That was a lie. Needham had already been awarded the McDonald's account and was proceeding with McDonaldland using H.R. Pufnstuf as their template. They hired former Krofft employees to design and build the costumes and sets. They even hired Lenny Weinrib, the voice actor who supplied all the Pufnstuf voices, to voice some of the McDonaldland characters. In January 1971, the first McDonaldland commercials aired. The similarities were impossible to miss. Mayor McCheese looked and acted exactly like H.R. Pufnstuf, right down to his oversized head and friendly demeanor. The McDonaldland environment was a fantasy world inhabited by anthropomorphic trees, plants, and creatures, just like Living Island. Even the Keystone Cop characters had equivalents on both properties. The Krofts filed a copyright infringement lawsuit in September 1971. The case went to trial in November 1973, lasting 3 weeks. The jury watched episodes of H.R. Pufnstuf and McDonaldland commercials side by side. They found in favor of the Krofts and awarded damages of $50,000. Both sides appealed. The case reached the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, which published its decision on October 12, 1977. The court found that McDonald's and Needham had infringed on the Krofts' copyright by copying the total concept and feel of H.R. Pufnstuf. Following the ruling, McDonald's was ordered to pay the Krofts over $1 million in damages. As part of the settlement, McDonald's stopped using several McDonaldland characters that too closely resembled Pufnstuf characters. The case became a landmark copyright decision, establishing important legal precedents about protecting not just specific characters, but the overall creative vision of a work. For the Krofts, the victory was bittersweet. They'd proven their case, but only after McDonald's had already saturated American culture with characters inspired by their creation. The Ice Capades, which had previously featured H.R. Pufnstuf characters, switched to using McDonaldland characters instead. The Krofts lost licensing deals because companies thought McDonald's had the rights to similar characters. Fact 3. The show ran for 3 seasons, but only had 17 episodes. Here's something that confuses many people who remember watching H.R. Pufnstuf during their childhood. The show aired on NBC's Saturday morning schedule from September 1969 through September 1971. But only 17 original episodes were ever produced, all filmed in 1969. The first season, which ran from September 6, 1969 to December 27, 1969, contained all 17 episodes. When NBC brought the show back for additional seasons, they simply repeated the same 17 episodes. No new content was created after that initial production run. This was common practice for Saturday morning children's programming in that era. If a show performed well in the ratings, networks would keep it on the schedule by running repeats. Children didn't seem to mind watching the same episodes multiple times. In fact, the repetition probably helped young viewers memorize every detail of their favorite shows. H.R. Pufnstuf was successful enough in its first season that NBC kept it on the air for 2 more years. The show developed a devoted following, and those 17 episodes were watched and rewatched by millions of children throughout the early 1970s. That repetition is part of why the show left such a strong impression on viewers. They weren't just watching it once, they were experiencing the same episodes over and over, cementing every detail in memory. Fact 2. A feature film followed in 1970. The success of the television series led to a feature film released in 1970 by Universal Pictures. Simply titled Pufnstuf, the movie brought back most of the television cast and crew. Jack Wilde reprised his role as Jimmy, Billy Hayes returned as Witchiepoo, and H.R. Pufnstuf himself appeared with all the familiar characters from Living Island. Universal Pictures and Kellogg's, the sponsors of the television show, financed the film. Filming began in January 1970, and the movie rushed into production to capitalize on the show's popularity. The film was released theatrically on August 27, 1970, less than a year after the TV series premiered. The film had a bigger budget than the television show, allowing for more elaborate sets and effects. It also featured special guest stars, most notably Cass Elliot from the Mamas and the Papas, who played Witch Hazel, Witchiepoo's bitter rival. According to actress Joy Campbell, who played Kling, Elliot was distant on set. She wasn't rude, but she kept to herself, which surprised people given her reputation as a warm performer. Martha Ray was cast as Boss Witch. The Crofts originally wanted Bette Davis for the role. When Sid Croft called to offer her the part, Davis was so insulted at being anyone's first choice to play a witch that she hung up on him. Ray turned out to be the perfect replacement. Everyone expected her to behave like a diva, but she befriended the cast and crew, even inviting them to dinner. Jack Wilde had a different opinion, later calling her a right old cow. Despite any personality clashes, Ray enjoyed working with the Crofts so much that she went on to play Benita Bazaar in their next series, The Bugaloos. Some new characters appeared only in the film. Googie Gopher and Orville Pelican had no television counterparts. The movie also changed some of the voice actors. Characters voiced by Lenny Weinrib in the show were voiced by Alan Melvin and Don Messick in the film. The movie featured original songs with music by Charles Fox, and a soundtrack album was released on LP cassette and 8-track in 1970. The film's plot differed from the television show. Instead of being a series of episodic adventures, the movie told one continuous story about Witchiepoo's attempt to steal Freddie the Flute to impress the visiting Witches' Council and win the Witch of the Year award. The movie even included a subplot where Witchiepoo planned to serve roasted Pufnstuf as the main course at the witch convention. Interestingly, the film was presented largely from Witchiepoo's perspective. She opens the film while the screen is still dark, describing what audiences are about to see as a story about Goody Two-Shoes and what they did to poor, sweet, adorable me. Billy Hayes later recalled being touched by how many children at appearances loved Witchiepoo as much as they loved Pufnstuf himself. Her comic villainy made her as popular as the heroes. The movie expanded the H.R. Pufnstuf universe and gave the show's fans a chance to see their favorite characters in color on the big screen. While the television show had been filmed in color, many viewers in 1969 still watched on black and white televisions. The theatrical release let everyone see the full, vivid palette that defined Living Island's visual style. Despite the TV show's popularity, the film wasn't a major box office success. Critics found it too bizarre and chaotic. But like the television series, Pufnstuf the movie found its true audience in later years. It became a cult classic, beloved by those who discovered it on home video and cable television reruns. The film was released on DVD in 2009 and on Blu-ray in 2021, introducing new generations to the wild, colorful world the Croft brothers created. Fact 1. Billie Hayes became one of the best witches ever. Billie Hayes didn't just play Witchiepoo. She became one of the most beloved television witches of all time. Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz, once told Sid and Marty Krofft that Billie Hayes was one of the best witches ever. Coming from the actress who defined the role of the Wicked Witch for generations, that was high praise. After H.R. Pufnstuf, Billie continued working with the Krofft brothers. She appeared as Witchiepoo on the 1976 Paul Lynde Halloween special and in the series finale of the Banana Splits Adventure Hour. When the Crofts created Lidsville in 1971, Billie played Weenie the Genie, a not-so-competent magical being who tried to help the show's young protagonist. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Billie guest-starred on numerous television shows, often playing eccentric or villainous characters that capitalized on her Witchiepoo fame. She appeared on Bewitched, playing a gingerbread house witch in a 1971 episode. She guest-starred on The Monkees, Trapper John M.D., and had a recurring role on General Hospital. Billie transitioned increasingly to voice work as she got older. She lent her distinctive voice to Hanna-Barbera cartoons throughout the 1980s, including Trollkins, the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries, and the Real Ghostbusters. She voiced Orgoch, one of 3 witches, in Disney's 1985 animated film, The Black Cauldron. In the 1990s and 2000s, she continued voice acting for shows like Rugrats, Johnny Bravo, The Batman, and Teen Titans. Billie Hayes retired from acting in 2016 after voicing a recurring character in Transformers, Rescue Bots. She spent her later years as president of Pet Hope, an animal rescue organization she founded in Los Angeles. When she signed autographs, she didn't do it for personal gain. She requested that people donate to Pet Hope instead. Billie Hayes died of natural causes on April 29, 2021, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. She was 96 years old. The Crofts paid tribute to her on social media, repeating Margaret Hamilton's praise that Billie was one of the best witches ever. For anyone who grew up watching H.R. Pufnstuf, Witchiepoo's cackling laugh and comic villainy remain unforgettable. H.R. Pufnstuf lasted only 1 season of original episodes, but its impact stretched across decades. The show introduced a visual style and creative approach that influenced children's programming for years afterward. It launched the Krofft brothers into television prominence, leading to Land of the Lost, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Lidsville, and numerous other productions throughout the 1970s and beyond. The 17 episodes that aired between September and December 1969 created a world that felt genuinely magical to children watching at home. Living Island wasn't just a set with some puppets. It was a fully realized fantasy environment where anything could happen and usually did. That sense of wonder, combined with memorable characters and Billie Hayes' scene-stealing performance, kept viewers coming back week after week. Jack Wilde went on to appear in other films, including Melody and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, though he struggled with alcoholism for many years before getting sober in 1989. He died of oral cancer in 2006 at age 53. His autobiography, It's a Dodger's Life, was published in 2016. Marty Krofft died on November 25, 2023, at age 86 from kidney failure. Sid Krofft, now in his 90s, remains active. The brothers received a Lifetime Achievement Award at the 2018 Daytime Emmys and were honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2020. H.R. Pufnstuf remains a cultural touchstone for anyone who grew up in the late 1960s and early 1970s. It was weird, colorful, loud, and completely unlike anything else on television. That's exactly why it worked. That's exactly why we still remember it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more fascinating stories.